Hi, my name is Kieran Bond, and today we will be looking at blood doping. We'll be going into detail of how it works, the positive and negatives, how it is officially tested, and why it is banned across the sporting world. Along with this, we will look into a case study of an athlete who has been a part of blood doping, but if we do not have enough time for this, I encourage you all to go home and research this further for yourselves. So before we go anywhere, we need to first understand what blood doping actually is. As we already know, blood cells carry oxygen from the lungs to the muscles to help them function. A higher concentration in the blood can improve an athlete's aerobic capacity and endurance. As identified by the World Anti-Doping Agency, blood doping is the misuse of certain techniques and/or substances to increase one's red blood cell mass, to give athletes an advantage over their competitors. Blood doping allows the body to transport more oxygen around the body to the muscles working and therefore increase stamina, power, and performance during competitions. When it comes to blood doping, there are three widely known substances or methods used. These are as followed. Number 1, blood transfusions. Number 2, injections of erythropoietin, otherwise known as EPOs. And number 3, injections of synthetic oxygen carriers. I will go on to talk about these more in a moment, talking in depth about how each method works and steps needed for each of them. However, no matter which substance or method used, all three of them are prohibited under the World Anti-Doping Agency list of prohibited substances and methods. Blood doping was first made illegal during 1986, according to the International Sports Studies. Blood transfusions. To start off with, we will talk about blood transfusions and the process athletes go through to reach the benefits of blood doping. Some of you may have heard of blood transfusions before. That may have been during some of your history or science lessons, as it is a commonly used medical practice that has saved millions of lives over time. In normal medical practice, patients would undergo blood transfusions to replace blood lost due to an injury they may have sustained or maybe during surgery. Transfusions are also given to patients who suffer from low red blood cell counts that can be caused through anemia, kidney failure, and other conditions. In terms of blood transfusions when it comes to sport and blood doping, the process is very similar, but there is two variations of transfusions that are used. Number 1, autologous transfusions. This involves a transfusion of an athlete's own blood, which is drawn and then stored for future use. The second is homologous transfusion. In this type of transfusion, athletes use the blood of someone else with the same blood type, which is then transfused into the athlete at a later date. In more detail, autologous blood transfusions take a certain amount of athlete's blood a few weeks before a competition is due to take place. The red blood cells are separated from the rest of the blood and stored under optimal conditions. The red blood cells are then reinserted into the body shortly before the competition. The body has meanwhile replaced the lost blood, thus achieving a higher concentration of red blood cells during the competition. Homologous blood transfusions works in the exact same way, however it is taken from a foreign body a few weeks beforehand, and then the start of the process, and then it is the same from then on, just as the autologous transfusion. So the second form of blood doping is EPO injections. So this is obviously an injection into the bloodstream of EPOs. EPOs is a hormone produced by the kidney that promotes the formation of red blood cells by the bone marrow. EPO is produced naturally by the body. The hormone gets released by the kidneys and causes the body's bone marrow to pump out red blood cells. Red blood cells shuttle oxygen through the person's blood, so any boost in their numbers can improve the amount of oxygen the blood can carry to the body's muscles. The end result would be more endurance, power, and aerobic capacity. The third form of blood doping is injections of synthetic oxygen carriers. So again, this will be injections into the bloodstream. But first of all, this is an emerging new form of blood doping in the use of synthetic oxygen carriers. It is purified proteins or chemicals that have the ability to carry oxygen. They are still under development and have not been approved for human use outside of South Africa and Russia. SOCs were developed for use in crisis situations where blood transfusions are not possible or blood products are not available. However, they have now started to be used as another form of blood doping that is effective and harder to detect. An example of a synthetic oxygen carrier is hemoglobin-based oxygen carriers. The reason why athletes take HbOCs is due to the fact that they can carry up to 4 times more oxygen than regular human blood. This allows them to deliver more oxygen than what is possible to the muscles, even in the most well-trained athletes. They also are attracted to athletes because they have a very short life and they clear from the blood very quickly. This makes the athletes be able to go undetected whilst using HbOCs, making it a lot easier to get away with cheating and enhancing their chances of winning. Of course, there will be side effects with all forms of blood doping. For example, these include dangerous increase of plasma potassium levels, flu-like symptoms, and high blood pressure when injecting EPOs. The side effects for blood transfusions include HIV, hepatitis B or C, allergic reactions, rashes, hives, and fevers. This can be especially when getting blood transfusions the homologous way through a foreign body, as you may not know what diseases might be in that blood when injecting it into yourself as an athlete. Lastly, injections of synthetic oxygen carriers. This can cause heart diseases, strokes, heart attacks, and even blood clots, which can all, in the most serious of ways, caused by death. The World Anti-Doping Agency. The World Anti-Doping Agency's vision and aim is for a world where all athletes can compete in a doping-free sporting environment. The WADA was founded on the 10th of November 1999 as a private foundation with the seat in Louisiana. In the aftermath of the doping scandals that arose during the 1998 Tour de France, the agency was set up with the aim of harmonizing the various anti-doping regimes operating in sport and promoting and coordinating the fight against doping in sport in all its forms. Its main instrument in the fight against doping is the World Anti-Doping Code, which the WADA is required to update regularly. The code contains certain core articles which the various sports federations are obligated to adopt. These core articles include definitions of what counts as a doping violation, what burdens and standards of proof should be adopted, and what sanctions should be imposed. The WADA has adopted some tough measures in its mission to create doping-free sport. Since the 1st of January 2015, for instance, an athlete can be suspended for 4 years in the event of their first doping-related offence. This used to, however, only be 2. How people are caught. A test for EPOs, validated by the International Olympic Committee, was based on blood and urine testing. A blood screening was performed first, and a urine test was then used to confirm possible use of EPOs. However, not all blood doping methods can be detected through testing. For example, autologous transfusions cannot be detected at this current time, and there is still research going into this. But there are some which can. In order to further improve detection of abnormal blood profiles, WADA is leading the development of a strategy against doping in sport called the Athlete Passport, which is based on following athletes' biological variables over time. The objective of this strategy, which will be added to the anti-doping strategies including traditional testing, is to detect abnormal variations of determined biological variables in order to better target testing and/or sanction those found with abnormal variations. The morals behind doping. Doping is a moral issue and is widely considered as a form of cheating because of the purpose to gain an unfair advantage over others, which ultimately challenges the integrity of those involved. There is a study called Goldman's Dilemma, which I encourage you all to look at further. A case study which involves an athlete who has used blood doping is Lance Armstrong. He was 7 times Tour de France winner, denied doping for years, ruined and destroyed careers of others for his own benefit, and was eventually caught and then lost everything. I encourage you all to look at the Lance Armstrong and Oprah interview for more information. Here are the references for this presentation. Thank you. Bye-bye.